Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh, Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. I feel so very blessed with this podcast and the impact it's having. My intention was really just to simplify spirituality and guide people on their journey. And I can see with the messages I get on a regular basis. Just actually before we started recording, I got a DM from someone just followed me on Instagram and saying, I'm a huge fan of your podcast. Thank you so much. And it lifts my soul. And I know it does for Stacey too. Any, when we receive these type of messages. So thank you. If you're a regular listener, when we get allowing us to guide you on your journey. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I'm glad you could join. I'm glad you could, hopefully we can provide some wisdom and some insight. Let us know, because feedback's a blessing. I am an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host and podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. And the spiritual side is what I love to do. I spent many years in the corporate world, and I left a very senior role a couple of years ago to focus on this. I love to guide people on their spiritual journey, hold their space, help people to understand why they're here, the programming, release the programming, understanding soul contracts, really give insight into your journey and hold your space. None of us here need to be fixed. But sometimes when you work with a mentor or guide, we can share insights, intuitive hits, etc., to guide you on your journey. Because everything you need is inside you, but sometimes you need guided to what that looks like. So if my voice resonates, please do reach out, book a discovery call. You can book one with me or me and Stacey. Stacey's the co-host on this podcast, and we work really well together. And this podcast wouldn't be where it is today without my beautiful co-host introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire and published author, Stacey Brown. Stacey, you know I'm never going to stop doing that, right?
Hi, friends. It's so good to be back with you. I'm really looking forward to this episode. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from all around the world. I, too, am an Akashic record reader and a spiritual coach and mentor. And I'm looking forward to this topic today. This can be a tender topic, so please reach out for support if you need it. Looking forward to getting into it today, though, Nims.
Yeah, so mine, just as you say, it is a sensitive topic. So today we're going to talk about the impact of alcohol. So, alcohol and spirituality. Does drinking really block your awakening? I guess just to preface it is, alcohol and alcoholism and just kind of the impact it can have on lives. Just wanted to kind of, if you need professional help, if you need guidance, then please do get that. I mean, what we're going to talk about here is the spiritual impact of alcohol and kind of our view and what we channel. But this can never replace kind of getting that professional help. So yeah, before we dive into the topic, I just wanted to mention that. Stacey, anything you want to mention in terms of the topic before we actually start talking about it?
I think it can be a sensitive one. And I want to make sure that our listeners know that we recognize this is a sensitive topic. And we're coming at this from a spiritual perspective and how alcohol can impact your spiritual journey. But if you need professional support, please reach out and get it.
Couldn't agree more. And, just to mention, actually, this topic came from a listener. And, it just felt like an interesting topic, especially to dive in now, right, at this moment, because we're all going through something, right? It feels like we're all kind of going through some sort of spiritual shift, and sometimes it gets a lot, especially right now. And, it's being gentle with yourself is really important. So, alcohol and awakening. I guess the first thing to mention about it is alcohol it's widely accepted as a social norm, right? Again, depending where you come from, your background, etc. But generally, it is woven into social life. And, a lot of the times what do you use alcohol for? to fit in, to feel part of something, to avoid standing out. It's also, I believe, any kind of abuse in that sort of way. Spiritually, it could be that we're receiving so much information that we try and numb it, right? And we'll dive into this, but I guess I wanted to just introduce it in that kind of way. But spiritually, when we're going through a shift, when we're going through an awakening, whatever you might want to call it, a lot of the time it does trigger a reevaluation of habits. So how do you feel about alcohol? Is the best way to really start this. How does it fit into your life? Do you feel like you're aware of the impact it's having? And as we go through a shift, is your feelings towards the alcohol and what it means into your world, has it shifted? Has it changed? Like I said, it's an interesting time and it's an interesting topic. I know for me, if I talk about me, it's just, so as a student, it was kind of an everyday occurrence. It was the norm. But as I've done more and more spiritual work, I still occasionally drink. But I rarely drink now. It's not really part of my world. And I don't know if I've intentionally stopped. I realize that I can have a good time. And a lot of times I like to, I do like to drive rather than take a taxi, take an Uber, etc. So I just feel I didn't need it. But that's not the truth. It's the same, right? Everybody has our vices. I know at times I've used food, right? So everyone has a thing, but for me, alcohol in today's world doesn't really impact me. I know with clients, I have the conversation around alcohol quite often and the impact it's had on people's lives. But Stacey, I'd love for you just to, as we dive into this topic, what impact has alcohol had on your world and how has it affected your spiritual journey, and any kind of insights you want to give in as we dive into this topic?
So it's interesting because I didn't grow up around alcohol. I grew up Mormon. I attended the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and there was no drinking. So there was no alcohol in my house growing up. I didn't really have any experience to compare it to. And I ended up marrying an alcoholic, which is kind of interesting because I didn't have a history with alcohol. I didn't have a way to decipher what was, quote, normal and what wasn't. I had very little experience with it. And then it was like trial by fire, being married to somebody who couldn't control their consumption of alcohol. I think kind of heightened my senses to it. For a period of time, I was like, if you can't beat them, join them. And I was drinking as well. And I hated the way that I felt. And it wasn't something that I continued to have in my life on a regular basis. But I can tell you the times that I have had alcohol in my life, I feel like are the times where I have regrets about decisions that I've made or things that I've done that I wouldn't have done had I not been drinking. And I'm now in this space in my life where I don't really feel like alcohol fits. There's, occasional times, very rare, where I will go out socially and have a drink or two. But I have found for me, it dulls my senses in a way that doesn't allow me to be as connected as I want to be. And so it's just been something that as I've gotten older has kind of phased out for me and has not been something that's been in my world. And I think it's also the fact that being with an alcoholic and seeing the impact of the way alcohol was not just on his life, but on our life, it was something that I didn't want to continue to experience. And so I feel like when it comes to this, my senses were heightened because I knew that this was not something that I wanted in my life on a regular basis. And I think it's really important to delve into what alcohol is doing to your body, right? Like, are you using it to avoid? Are you using it to numb? Are you using it to check out from something that you don't want to deal with? Because I found that a lot of times that's where people come from when they're drinking excessively. And I'm not talking about a glass of wine at dinner. I'm talking about where you are inebriated and lose sense of time and space and boundaries and all of that. And I think there's got to be a question of, why are you doing that? You know, what are you trying to avoid in consuming alcohol in that way? And if you really want to be spiritually connected, how can you be if you're numbing your senses in that way?
It's an interesting question, right? And we, just the numbing effect of alcohol, and I guess if for all our listeners, if you are, just consider the impact alcohol has had on your life and your journey, and what are you using it for in today's world? Because Stacey mentioned the numbing effect, right? And on the spiritual journey, I feel like that's a large part of it, right? I mentioned earlier that sometimes I feel like we're receiving so much information and we can't understand it. Our human brain, our ego, is trying to understand it, and it can't. And this is where the numbing effect comes in, because ultimately alcohol is a way of suppressing emotions and avoiding discomfort, and ultimately to masking pain. Because that's the other thing, is that sometimes we're receiving so much information we can't handle it. The other thing is that we have some painful experiences and maybe some karma to it, and it gets too much. So whatever the impact it has on your world, be kind to yourself, because you can't change the past. And like we said earlier, if it's impacting you in today's world, then definitely encourage you to get help. But asking yourself and becoming aware of the impact, because it is a short-term relief, right? Let's be honest. It's if you're feeling so much pain, it is a short-term relief. But what impact does it have on your long-term disconnection? Because whatever is going to happen inside, you need to deal with it, right? It's like we're a volcano. We're pushing stuff down. Eventually, it has to come up. So numbing emotions, I feel, delays spiritual growth, and it blocks the raw authenticity of who we are. And I remember, actually, I didn't think about it before starting this episode, but I remember when I turned 18, and in the UK, 18 is the legal drinking age, and I remember going out with some friends, and at the end of the night, some friends thought it would be funny to all hold me down and pour, maybe not a whole bottle of whiskey, but a large amount of whiskey, in my mouth. So they thought it was funny because I turned 18. I'm not sure I'd class that as funny, but 18-year-olds are 18-year-olds, and I do feel that experience has impacted me. I do feel like, I drank as in university, of course I did, right? And it's just kind of that part of that journey. But I don't know if I've ever allowed myself very often to drink to a point where I'm not in control. And after that night, I've somehow got home, and it was a mess, right? So it's interesting how experiences like that probably has affected my journey with kind of moving forward. So maybe that's a good. What was your earliest experience of alcohol? Because then if you move on to the energetic impact of alcohol, it lowers you. Again, just our view, just my view, I feel like it lowers our vibration. Maybe Stacey said, she goes back, and some of the decisions that maybe she regrets was when, when alcohol was involved. And I do feel it creates energetic holes in our aura, right? It does leave us maybe a bit more susceptible to different things happening, right? Maybe even difficulty connecting with our guides, our intuition, meditation. Does it create a barrier and stop us from channeling at a deeper level? Again, this is all views, right? Whatever my truth is my truth. Maybe for some people, drinking alcohol, you lose some inhibitions, and maybe it allows you to connect at a deeper level. I guess that could be true. I'm not sure. It's not sure something I believe. But everybody's different. So, Stacey, let me ask you that question in terms of. I know that when I drink, or when I used to drink, a lot of it was social, peer pressure. Sometimes you just want to let go, and I know I'm the sort of person that has always liked to kind of be in control, and maybe there's a part of that where I fully don't let myself go as far as alcohol is concerned. Don't know, but I'm curious what your view on the times when you have been drinking. What benefits did it give you, and kind of spiritually, what impact do you feel it has and has had on you?
I don't feel like it benefited me at all. I feel like the times that I leaned into alcohol was either a social experience and wanting to fit in and be a part of things, or it was numbing the experiences that I was having, specifically with my husband, because that was the period of time where I was drinking the most. And it was this desperate feeling that I couldn't change what he was doing. And so maybe I would try to do what he was doing and see if I could numb the same sort of thing that he was numbing. And what I found for me was I would just wake up the next day feeling more anxious than I already had, or more depressed than I'd already been feeling. And the cycle ended up being something that didn't feel healthy to me. It was a vicious cycle of, okay, I'm going to do this, kind of hyping myself up, drinking, and then feeling like crap afterwards, and then repeating that cycle. And I have found that now in my life, I just don't have room to feel that way. Like, life is challenging enough to add feeling the aftermath of alcohol just doesn't fit in with what I have going on. And this doesn't mean that I don't ever drink, right? Like, there are those occasional times where I'll have a glass of wine with dinner or something to that effect. But I would say my alcohol consumption is very limited because I don't like the history that I've had with it. And I don't like the place that it takes me to. And I have found for me that whatever negative stuff I'm feeling, it actually gets magnified by the alcohol. So if I'm feeling depressed or anxious, the next day I'm going to feel even more depressed and anxious. And it just doesn't feel worth it to me to go down that path of making myself feel bad. I want to be in a space of connection. I want to feel like I'm living my life and I'm experiencing all of the things. And to disconnect from any of the experiences in this season of my life just doesn't feel like something I want to do anymore. It was something in the past, and I have found that in this season, it just doesn't mix. It doesn't align with who I want to be and who I am. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, right? And this is kind of the journey we go on, right? It just, whatever path we pick, I mean, of the veil, if you do the spiritual work, the veil of amnesia comes thinner and thinner. You start to become more present, more aware. And, I mean, ultimately, as you said, you have an occasional drink, and it's not, there's no judgment here, right? I mean, alcohol is socially normalized, right? It's, a lot of the time it's tied into celebrations, connections, belonging. Um, you know, Actually, I remember in the corporate space, right? There was a lot of time, a lot of social occasions, and I feel like the world's changed now because there's not as much post COVID. It's still there, but maybe it's not as much. But pre COVID, yeah, there was definitely more of a pressure to socially drink, even in the corporate space, right? And there's a company events. If you don't go, it's frowned upon. If you don't stay and you don't drink, it's frowned upon. So it is, fitting in, being gentle with yourself, I do feel is important. But actually, one of the things you mentioned, which just did hit a chord, is the impact that alcohol has on relationships. And by the way, it may not even be you, the one that's drinking. But everything we've said, when it's your partner that's drinking, the impact it has on you, maybe the lack of control, maybe even the fear. Because there's many angles to this, but also, the soul contracts you have in your world. You should also consider that if somebody in your world is drinking and it's impacting your relationship, there's probably a deeper soul contract there. I know I'm going off at a tangent, but I just felt cool to just really, when I think about the impact of alcohol on society, in many ways, if you drink a lot, you're probably impacting not just yourself, but you're definitely having a big impact on the people around you, right? Stacey mentioned her husband at the time and the impact it had, and that's what kind of raised that thought is, everything we're saying can also be applied to your partner, etc. In terms of the reasons behind drinking, the karmic. Because the other thing too, sometimes there is a deeper wound there, right? Asking for attention, maybe, or having so much deep pain from maybe not even this life, and wanting to numb that pain. It doesn't intersect with the shadow work, right? There's that. Sometimes it takes you to a really dark place that you need to go to then start to come out of it. So it's not really about the past and what it's done. It's about, if you listen to this in this moment, then what? Maybe there's some pain that you're numbing. Maybe there's some shadow work that needs to be done. So really asking yourself that question: how does drink serve you? If you were numbing a pain, where does that pain come from? How do you really feel? Do you feel like alcohol is hindering your spiritual journey? And then also considering your soul contract with alcohol. Is there something there that you're carrying from the past? I guess that, Stacey, to expand on something you said, and to ask you that question, what impact did spiritually have on you that your partner used to drink a lot? Anything more you can share on that perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting because I spent a lot of time avoiding exploring my spiritual connection. And, I grew up in this like religious environment, but my spiritual component, I didn't know what to do with it. And so then you put me in a situation where I have a partner who is numbing with alcohol. And it really hindered the what could have been the spiritual connection that we had as a couple. But because he was numbing and I didn't know how to navigate it, it caused this massive disconnect. And I felt like it's interesting because when you're in the program in Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the things that they talk about is if you were to look in the window of a house where there's an alcoholic and watch the dynamic of the family, after time, it becomes impossible to tell who the addict is because everybody in the family takes on a role, and it's a role in the dysfunction. And I feel like that really applies to what we're talking about right now, because I felt like that disconnect for me disconnected all of us from having any spiritual connection and kept us from having a spiritual connection as a couple. Right. And I mean, for those of you who are married or in a relationship, there is so much power in having a spiritual connection with your partner and being able to honor that. And when you don't have that, quite frankly, I don't see how the relationship sustains or survives in the world that we have right now with all that we have going on without having some sort of connection like that with your partner. And so for me, it really hindered not only my personal growth, but my growth with my partner, and feeling like there was a wall that was a barrier between what I wanted to be living and what I was actually living. And that was extremely challenging, extremely challenging.
Just to challenge you a little bit, can you talk about your journey to breaking through that wall and kind of where it led you to who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it has not been an easy process. I have chosen to partner with an addict more than once, not realizing that's what I was doing. And it really held me back from being who I am now and who I believe I'm meant to be. I feel that I spent a lot of time numbing my own pain and avoiding the fact that I was intuitive, avoiding the fact that I knew stuff about people and didn't know how to tell them or how to approach it, didn't know what to do with who I was, and didn't know where to turn to get the guidance that I needed. And so I just kept repeating the same cycle, Nimesh. Like I found partners who were trying to numb the pain, and I would then kind of mimic the behavior because I was in the relationship and working closely with it. And there was this mentality, if you can't beat them, join them. And so for a period of time, I was living my life that way and was creating more pain for myself than what I would have if I was sober. My decisions weren't aligned. My heart and soul weren't aligned. I didn't feel connected with my soul family. I didn't feel connected with my angels and my guides. I felt a massive void in my life, and trying to fill it with a substance wasn't working. And so for me, the aftermath was recognizing that that partnership had a huge impact on what I was doing. Because it's interesting now in my life, I'm living very much a very different lifestyle because I'm doing it based off of my own way of being instead of the influence of someone else. Like, I'm in a relationship, but it's very long distance. And on a day-to-day basis, I'm making decisions for myself and what's aligned with me. And what's aligned with me is to be plugged in, to experience life to its fullest in the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to feel it. I want to see it. I want to understand it. And I don't want to numb it. And so I think one of the things that being in these relationships has taught me is this: it's lit a fire in me that I'm determined to live life connected, and that I don't want to disconnect or numb from that. That it's something I really want to experience. And I want to remember the lessons too. I mean, there's so many times where alcohol has kind of acted as an eraser to wipe away what you don't want to deal with. And then you kind of wake up the next day and it's there, but it feels even bigger. And I was tired of that cycle. I didn't want to live that way. And so for me, being in this season of kind of being on my own and navigating what that looks like, it's shown me that alcohol isn't actually something that I personally am invested in. It was my surroundings and who was impacting that. And I want to remain really conscious going forward that regardless of who's around me or what's happening, that I'm living this life true to myself and true to my values, which is alcohol doesn't really do it for me.
I love it. I love how you took us on a journey and the reason that led me to ask you that question is I was thinking deeper about the soul contracts we have and what our soul has decided. And you talked about attracting the same type partner, and I have a kind of a different view on repeat cycles. What I view is that we have some really deep healing to do, and sometimes what feels like a repeat cycle, attracting the same type partner, as an example, is actually a deeper level of learning and deeper level of release for a similar type of thing, because we've carried a lot of karma into this life. So if drinking has been, if alcohol has been a big part of your life, whether it's you or your people in your world, do think about the reasons why you contracted that. What's the deeper lesson behind it? Because again, there's a reason why you've attracted that in your life. And Stacey talks about who she's today and kind of how alcohol's doesn't really, it's not something that has the same level of impact it used to. And that is the kind of journey we're on, right? That is the journey, and there's no right or wrong. So if right now you're in the situation where alcohol is a bigger part of your life, well, ask, how is it serving you? What impact is it having in your world? And what would it feel like if alcohol was less part of your world? What happens if you start to reduce or eliminate alcohol? How would that feel? Does it scare you? Is there a deeper learning that you've got? Just some darkness that you need to release? It's an interesting journey we're on, right? And being in control, being in situations you feel safe, maybe that's something you want to experience. Again, it's easy for us to say, right? I'm very, very conscious of that it's easy with this topic. When both me and Stacey at this point in our lives, alcohol's doesn't have an impact. I mean, it has impacted my life. I mean, I've had family members previous in the past where we used to, but in this world, I feel very different around it. So we're trying to be very mindful of the impact, and like we said at the beginning, if you do feel like you need help, professional help, then please do get it. In choosing presence over escape, So if you are using alcohol to escape, the more time you can spend in self-care, the more time you can spend in, and then again, we probably sound like broken records because we mention this every week, but it really does have a big impact on all areas of your life, having that self-care, time in nature, time in meditation, physical activity, journaling. We'll talk about some journal prompts near the end, but that allows the universe to meet you halfway. So making one change a day really does have an impact. But Stacey also mentioned, you're creating a conscious community, really thinking about that, really feeling and thinking about the people in your world, what types of community you're in. Are you actively looking for more conscious communities? If you look around in your world and you look at the souls that are taking the biggest part of your journey, is your soul contract with those people complete? Is it time for you to maybe create some boundaries? Maybe cut out some people. Who knows? Only you can make that decision. How do you navigate such social situations where alcohol is central? Do you avoid those situations, or can you be in that situation and not drink and choose to have fun without alcohol? Or do you take yourself totally out and put yourself in different situations where it's more conscious? There's no black and white answer, but the answer's in you, right? But choosing your community, being conscious about your choices without judgment or shame, I feel like is a big part of the shift. And attracting new communities, because we are shifting from divine masculine to divine feminine. And when you put that angle on it, from a masculine's all about individual, all about ego, all about pressure to kind of to shine in the way that we're meant to. When you talk about divine feminine, it is all about community. It's all about heart. It's all about creating those spaces for people to be authentic themselves. And by the way, I in terms of being in social situations, I'm in the UK, going to the pub occasionally, meeting some friends and stuff is fine. It's good to have that social interaction. Do I need to drink? No. But again, that's my journey, and kind of wherever you are is perfect for you, but you have a choice as to what you do next. By the way, if you feel like we said earlier, if you feel like it's controlling you, then definitely get some professional help. But maybe you just start by doing one thing different per day. What advice would you have, Stacey, for anyone that's kind of either going through this themselves and alcohol's impacting their world, or the relationships and then they are being affected by other people drinking alcohol? As we start closing out this episode, what advice do you have for our listeners?
So if you have a partner or someone close to you who is abusing alcohol, I strongly encourage you to get some professional help. I don't believe that this is something that you can navigate through on your own, nor do I think you should. So I absolutely think having a support system, a therapist, a community group in place is really important to help you navigate next steps, because you can't bring somebody to healing. You have to allow them to come to their own conclusion. And that's one of the really stressful and challenging things with addiction is you don't have control over another person and their actions. And so getting the support for yourself is really, really important. It will help you to figure out next steps and help you figure out what your intention is with the current relationship and how you want to navigate it. And I absolutely couldn't have done it without professional help. If we're talking about you, like being the one that's struggling with alcohol, I encourage you to get some professional help and support for yourself as well. I just don't believe that this is something, if it is an addiction, I don't believe it's something that you can work through on your own necessarily, because you've got to get to the root cause of why you're using the way you are and what you're trying to avoid or what you're missing or what's feeling empty or lost. And trying to navigate through that by yourself, quite frankly, to me feels impossible. It just feels like it's really hard when you're in the situation to have the perspective of being able to look at it and say, okay, this is what's going on. And so having somebody in your corner to help you navigate through that, I think is really, really important. I also really believe in the power of writing. And we've talked about journaling and the impact that it can have. But if you're in a space right now where you're churning either with yourself or with a relationship with somebody who is using alcohol, if alcohol is in your life in a way that you feel is unhealthy, maybe sit down with your journal and write it out. Like, what are some of the behaviors that you're seeing that you're not happy with? How frequently are they happening? Right? Is this happening once every couple months? Is it happening once every couple weeks, once every couple days? And what is the vision that you have for your life? Like, what would look different if alcohol was not a part of your life? I feel like taking the time to be introspective and soul search is really important. And sometimes when we have a substance in our lives like this, it can be really hard to look at things with clear vision because alcohol clouds our judgment. But I absolutely feel that in order to work through this, you've got to face some parts of yourself that might be uncomfortable, but doing it with support, I feel, is the absolute key. You've got to have somebody in your corner that you can process this stuff with and get to the core reason of why. Why are you drinking the way you are? Or why is your partner drinking the way they are? What is the underlying issue that is causing this cycle to continue? And then you can make a plan as to how to change things, whether it's with you or with a partner. I want to say, though, if it's with a partner, you've got to remember it's up to them to decide when they're ready to get help. And if they're not ready to get help, you can't force them to it. You can give them ultimatums, you can pressure them, but at the end of the day, it really is up to them. And so I really feel like when it comes down to it, whether you're the one who's drinking or the one who's exposed to it, getting some professional support for yourself is hugely important. And I can absolutely tell you, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that support.
Some great advice there. Thank you, Stace. I mean, if I think about your close, the two main things you said were really, really important. One is awareness is always a big part of the journey, right? Understanding why you contracted the journey you have, the impact that alcohol is having, what is here to teach you. Without awareness, there's nothing you can do. So really understanding and asking those different questions, how it increases your awareness. And for sure, we're not here to fix people, right? So if you love somebody and you want them to, but unless they want to help themselves, you can't do anything. So thank you for that, Stacey. It's really powerful. And as we close out today's episode, as we start to talk about journal prompts, etc., we just want to remind you that your spiritual journey is not about perfection. I just talked about awareness. It's about awareness, honesty, and compassion. Alcohol can numb, distract, and lower your vibration, but it can also act as a mirror, showing you where healing is needed. And again, I'm not telling you to drink, but your journey with alcohol, it really can be that mirror. So if you've used alcohol to fit in, to avoid, or to escape, you're not alone, right? What matters is the courage to face yourself without the mask, to feel what you once numbed, and to choose presence over escape. And it's not easy. We're not saying, none of us, sometimes the words come across as easy, but looking in the mirror and having an honest conversation with yourself is really powerful. And every time you choose clarity over confusion, intuition over avoidance, and love over fear, you take another step into your awakening. And as Stacey says, ask for help. Ask yourself, what role do I want alcohol to play in my journey from this moment forward? You can't control what happened in the past unless you're a time machine. If you have, let me know. But honestly, you can't, right? And how much control do you have over the future? But you have control over this moment. The choice is always yours, and your guides, your soul, your community, the people, the people who are meant to hold your space are here to walk with you. You're needed, you're wanted, and if you're here at this time, I really believe your light is powerful. You were selected to be here at this time as we go through this transition. So we're sending you so much love and light. And Stacey, as we're closing out this episode, is there any general prompts you have? Any final bits of advice before we close?
So I would encourage you to listen back just a few minutes ago when I was talking about journaling. Some of the questions that I asked, I think would be really powerful. What am I avoiding, or what is my partner avoiding in this season that needs to be addressed? And getting some support so that you're not in this alone is very, very important. I think the beginning stages of things are communication and recognizing that you're not okay with the situation, whether it's about you or your partner, and being open about next steps that you want to take. But again, reminding you that this is one of those things that is really hard to do on your own, depending on the severity of it and how it's impacting your life. So absolutely reach out for support. There's so many organizations out there that are willing to help you and help you to navigate this challenging season. But I encourage you to take a closer look at your relationship with alcohol, wherever you are in the world today, and ask yourself if it feels aligned with how you're living. And if it doesn't, it's up to you to make some changes. Another powerful episode, Nims.
Yeah, definitely. None. Just and I guess we should mention, if you want to understand why your soul has picked this journey, then that's where booking an Akashic record may come in. I mean, it doesn't replace any professional help around alcoholism, etc. But if you do want to understand the soul's journey, and if you feel like you are going through a spiritual awakening, then again, maybe our mentorship program helps. You can book a free discovery call. And I love, Stacey's journal prompt. I guess the way I'd word it is, am I using alcohol to connect or to avoid? It's like, if I think about this episode, does drinking block awakening? It can delay clarity, and awareness is the key. And spirituality isn't about perfection; it's about honesty and courage. So on this episode, there's zero judgment. We're all on this. We're a soul having a human experience. Ultimately, alcohol can be a teacher. If it is part of your life, when you reach for it, just become a student. Ask, why are you reaching for it? How does it serve you? What does it reveal? That awareness really does help. Let us know the impact of this episode, and if there's any other topic you want us to cover. Stacey says, journaling and really understanding your relationship with alcohol and spirituality. But yeah, do share your experiences. Anything you'd love to. We always love getting feedback, and thank you for listening to this episode. We're sending you so much love and light, sending you the biggest hug. And as Stacey said, thank you for being in this space. Another powerful episode. Couldn't do without you, buddy. Sending you so much love and light and the biggest hug. And bye for now.